There we go. Okay, this is Chapter 7 test. I'll go through it. I will not be here Friday, but I had a couple people in second period want to retake it Friday. So if that's you, you can let me know what teacher to give it to. Okay. All right, first question, cube root of negative 125. Well, we can take a cube root of a negative as long as the root is an odd root. It can be a negative inside the root. And the cube root of 125 is 5, so the cube root of negative 125 is negative 5. Next one is 27 to the 2/3 power. So this just means the cube root of 27 squared. The cube root of 27 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. 4th root of 81, that's just 3. And 1 over 216 raised to the negative 1/3. Well, the negative means flip it, and then 1/3 means it's a cube root, and the cube root of 216 is 6. All right, number 5. We had 3 to the 2/3 times 3 to the 2/3 raised to the 3rd power. A couple of ways I could do this, but I'll go ahead and combine what's in the parentheses. Remember, if I have the same base, I just add the exponents. So this is equal to x to the 4/3. So this is equal to 3 to the 4/3. I don't multiply the 3's together. Okay, and then I raise that to the 3rd power, and 4/3 times 3 is just 4. So that's 3 to the 4th, which is 81. All right, next one. 4th root of 32, x to the 5th, y to the 4th. And I'm going to take the 4th root. I'm going to just break this up first into chunks. I think that's easiest. So 4th root of 32, there is no number that to the 4th power equals 32. So I'm going to break it up into one that does. 4th root of 16 is 2. The 4th root of 2. So that splits to this. Right? The 4th root of x to the 5th is the 4th root of x to the 4th times the 4th root of x. So that splits to that. And the 4th root of y to the 4th is just y. So now evaluating the 4th root of 16, I have 2. 4th root of x to the 4th is x and y. And then I have the 4th root of 2x left. So that's my answer. All right, questions on that one? 27 x to the 6th over 8 y to the 12th raised to the negative 2/3. I can't do anything to simplify the parentheses, so that's it. The negative means flip, so I'm just going to flip it. Or rewrite the same thing. 8y to the 12th over 27x to the 6th. And this is then raised to the 2/3. So this means everything in here, I'm going to take the cube root of and then square it. So the cube root of 8 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. Y to the 12th times 2/3 is y to the 24/3. 24/3 is 8. The cube root of 27 is 3. 3 squared is 9. X to the 6th times 2/3 is x to the 12/3. 12/3 is 4. And that's it. All right. Next one, cube root of 54 plus the cube root of 2. I mentioned in the review, anytime I see a problem like this where they have a cube root of 2 added on, I know I need to get this to something times the cube root of 2. So if I factor a 2 out of 54, I'm left with the cube root of 27. And the cube root of 27 is a perfect cube. So this is 3 cube roots of 2 plus 1 cube root of 2 is a total of 4 cube roots of 2. Questions on that one? Okay. All right, next one. If f of x equals x squared plus 2x and g of x equals x plus 1. It wants us to perform the indicated operation and state the domain. A lot of people didn't do the domain, like I warned you about, and you missed half a point for every time you didn't. Give me the domain. First one, f of x plus g of x. So f of x is x squared plus 2x. G of x is x plus 1. Combine my like terms. I have x squared plus 3x plus 1. This is not an equation. There's nothing to solve for. Okay, don't set it equal to 0. It just wants what f of x plus g of x is. And that's it. So this is your answer. I can look at this and I know it's a quadratic parabola. Parabolas have domains that are negative infinity to infinity, or all real numbers. So the domain here is that. All right. Next is f of x minus g of x. The important thing with when you're subtracting is to make sure you're putting things in parentheses and distributing the negative. So I have x squared plus 2x minus x plus 1. So that's x squared plus 2x minus x minus 1, which is x squared plus x minus 1. Again, it's a parabola. Domain is all real numbers. F of x times g of x. So that is x squared plus 2x times x plus 1. And just distribute x cubed plus x squared plus 2x squared plus 2x is x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2x. This is a cube function. Cube functions, domains, all real numbers. Remember, cube functions look like this. So domain's all real. So domain, again, is negative infinity to infinity. Then we have f of x divided by g of x. So that's x squared plus 2x divided by x plus 1. I can't simplify that any further. That's your answer. Now I'm looking for the domain. The domain can be any number except negative 1, because if x is negative 1, my denominator is 0. So I would write that as negative infinity to negative 1 union with negative 1 to infinity. Questions on any of those? Okay, then we have f of g of x. So f of g of x just means I take g of x and I put it in everywhere there's an x. So that's x plus 1 squared when I put it in for x here, plus 2 times x plus 1. So x plus 1 squared is not x squared plus 1. I still had a ton of people tell me that that's how this factor, or this FOILs. So it's x squared plus 2x plus 1. There's always a middle term. Distribute the 2 in. Combine like terms. The The domain, this is a parabola again, so the domain's all real numbers. All right, inverse functions. I have more room. So I'm given f of x equals 2x minus 4. So that's the same as y equals 2x minus 4. To find the inverse, I just switch x and y and solve for y. So to solve for y, I have to add 4. And then divide by 2. So 1/2 x plus 2. And that's the inverse of the original function, which I could represent that way, or I could put the -1 here. Next one. The reason they did this is if I were to graph x squared plus 5, it's just the graph of x squared moved up 5, which is, what is it? 2, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the graph of x squared plus 5. If I find the inverse of it, that inverse is not a function because the inverse won't pass the vertical line test. So in order for me to take the inverse, I've got to restrict my domain. And they're telling us that they restricted it to x is greater than or equal to 0. So they just want us to find the inverse of this function. So to find the inverse of that function, I just switch x and y. And then I take the square root. And normally it would be plus or minus. But since I'm just finding this piece, when I find the inverse, it's going to be just the positive piece of the inverse. So it's just the x squared of x minus 5. Okay. Then it's y equals, I'm just going to go ahead and write it as the cube root of x minus 7. Switch x and y. Cube both sides. Add 7. And I'm done. All right, next three are graphing. So the first two are square root functions. So I'm going to graph the parent function. And that's here, here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. So there's the parent function. So the first one is y equals 1 minus the square root of x, which I could rewrite just so it's in a form that makes sense to me. It's negative square root of x plus 1. So the negative square root of x I can handle first. Negative square root of x means it flips over the y-axis, or the x-axis, sorry. And then plus 1 just means I shift each one of these points up 1. So my green line is my actual graph. It also asks for me to state the domain and range. So the domain of the green line is everything from 0 to infinity. The range of the green line is everything from negative infinity to 1. Graph again, and it's y equals square root of x minus 2. So there's the square root of x. Shift it down 2. There's my final function. And the domain of this function, again, is everything greater than 0 and everything greater than -2 for the range. Question on that? Okay. Last one is a cube root function. So my parent function looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Just here. Something like that. But this one is the cube root x plus 2 plus 1. So I know every point shifts left 2 and up 1 unit. So I'm going to go left 2 up 1, left 2 up 1, left 2 up 1, left 2 up 1, and left 2 up 1. Connect these points. Something like that. So the red line's my new graph. The domain is all real numbers. The range is all real numbers. Question on that one? All right. Last 3. Solve the equation. Okay, so to solve this one, I just square both sides. To square this, that's 16 minus 8x plus x squared. Square this, that's just 10 minus 3x. A lot of people missed this one. They told me it was 16 plus x squared. Or some people told me it was 16 minus x squared. A lot of people forgot the middle term again. If I see that the degree here is 2, I know it's a parabola. And to solve a quadratic, I have to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms. Add 3x over, that's negative 5x. Subtract 10, that's 6. And now I just factor. So x is equal to 3 or 2. I need to check both. So if I put 3 in, 4 minus 3 is 1. 10 minus 6 is 4, and 10 minus 9 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. So 1 equals 1, that checks. I put 2 in. 4 minus 2 is 2. 10 minus 6 is 4, and the square root of 4 is 2, so that checks. So both of these are good. Next one is 5 equals negative square root of 7y minus 3. Well, I could just square both sides. Anytime, I can never distribute what's outside a root into the root. You can't do that. Okay, if the exponent is 1 instead of 1/2, I could. But any exponent other than 1, I can't just move whatever's outside into the root. Okay, so to square the left, that's 25. To square the right, I have negative 1 squared, that's just positive 1. And then this squared is 7y minus 3. I add 3, I get 28 equals 7y. Divide by 7, y is equal to 4. Now I need to check it. So I have 5 equals negative square root. 7 times 4 is 28 minus 3. 5 equals negative square root of 25. 5 equals negative 5. Doesn't work. So it's extraneous, there's no solution here. And then the last one is 2 times x plus 2 to the 1/3 equals 6. I had several people try and distribute that in. You can't do that. Let me show you why. If I have this, which I could rewrite, like that, right? If x is 6, well, what's 6 plus 2? 8 to the 1/3. 2 times 2 is 4. If I distribute this in, I get 8 plus 4 raised to the 1/3. That's 12 raised to the 1/3, which is not 4. Okay, you can't distribute into the root. So what I have to do here is divide everything by 2. Then take the cube of both sides. So I have x plus 2 on the left and 27 on the right. And x is 25. Go in and check it. 25 plus 2 is 27. The cube root of 27 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. It works.
Just kind of looking to see if you had your thing up there, your side dishes. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so that is it. Questions? Everybody figure out what you didn't get right and why? And if you want to retake it, you'll do better on the next one? Yeah, okay. With my highest grade being an 18.75, you can retake for full credit if you want. Okay. I probably won't add 3 1/4 points to everybody's. But I might pull that 1875 up to a 90. What is it now? 18.75 out of 22? 85. So what's 5% of 22? It's going to be 1.1. Yeah, so I'll add, I can either add 1.1 to everybody's test, or you can retake for full credit. Okay.